Are you video?
Yeah, I do live on YouTube, and then platforms will be voice over. Welcome back to Rock and Recovery. Your host is me. I've got a special guest, Ryan Penley. I hope I pronounced the last name right.
Nailed it.
I'm pretty sure I got the first name right, but the last names that normally give me problems. So how are you doing today? And thank you for coming on and joining the show.
Oh man, I'm chilling the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know you've got one hell of a story to tell. So I'll just let you jump right in and go for it.
Yeah, well, I took my partying drug use to the max. It started with having a little bit of confidence, talking to girls after a couple of my first beers. Took that to the highest stage of the epicenter of all partying. I moved to Vegas. I was in Vegas for like 11 years, and so I say that when you go to Vegas, there's a finite amount of time that you will last. Some people it's like a couple of hours. So I am kind of proud I lasted a decade there, because that's the type of town that will chew somebody up and spit.
That's definitely a tough town.
Pretty fast. And so, yeah, when I was out there, though, I was what you call functional, right? I had a few bucks in my pocket. I was doing I was checking off some boxes of the normal world, right? But however, this ever growing propensity for abuse of substances was like back there, right? I did good to like combat it with some exercise and some healthy stuff and some learning and stuff. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not so bad, right? But then I got into opiates, right? And I snapped my leg in Utah, and so they gave me enough painkillers to kill a rhinoceros. And most people close to me, they say that's where like I made a hard left, right? Like they remember like seeing my eyes. It was like a switch. And for anybody that's been around enough drugs, enough parties, like there's always like there's somebody that it does it a little bit more for, right? Like you see their eyes kind of like bing, like it hits them a little different. And that's what painkillers were for me. And I had that green light, my medicine, right? Like I have my medicine. And so, for so many people that gives them that crutch to lean on addictive tendencies if they have them. Right. And so I did that until I couldn't. And then, my body started falling apart and things got a little nasty. So I did what all good alcoholics and addicts do, right? It's like, I'll just move somewhere. Like I'll change the location and that's going to fix everything. Cause it's such a great idea. And then you bring your dumb ass with yourself, right? Like, and so here you are packing all your stuff. You're like, man, things are going to be different. And then it's like, nope, I can find cocaine in the middle of nowhere, right? Like, so it's like, I'll just go to a small town and there won't be any trouble there. So I moved to Colorado, a town of like 6,000 people. And I managed to do every damn drug that was in that town. And so
I got to ask, what town in Colorado? I hate cutting you off, but what town in Colorado?
I know. I love for you to cut me off because I'll just run my damn mouth forever. Is Estes Park, Colorado.
Oh, yeah. Good old Larimer and Boulder counties. That's where I grew up.
Yeah, it did.
I grew up in Boulder and Fort Collins area, the general Fort Collins, Greeley, Loveland, Longmont area.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Boulder, Louisville. I got lots of family there still.
Dude, I've been itching to go back, right? Because
Estes Park is a cesspool, though. Come on. The only thing good about Estes Park is the Stanley Hotel.
That's where I worked. I worked there.
Okay, yeah. Well then you did good.
Well, the elk are pretty damn cool too, brother. There's like elk everywhere. But if you grew up there, you didn't know, like, you know what I mean? When I come from Florida, it blew my mind. Rocky Mountain National Park, all that stuff. And so that was like the kind of the balance. But It is what you want, what you're really
See,
searching
I did the
for.
reverse. So you went from Florida to Colorado.
Right.
I'm in Florida now, so I did the reverse.
Right. 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 Well, it lends to the story, though, what you're pointing out, right? Because when I went into, I didn't know I had diabetes, and I got locked up. My friends thought like if they call the cops on me, I was wanted at the time, and they're like, "Well, we'll just put him in jail because he'll be safe from himself." Not a bad idea, right? And so I get out of jail, and I was like craving sugar like crazy.
Mm.
I was like somewhat sober, but a friend of mine, he drives down the hill, right? He comes down from Estes, gets me. I was in Fort Collins, I think.
Oh, Laramie County Jail.
And so I was like, I was craving sugar, and I'm like, well, man, I had like $4 to my name, and so it wasn't like drugs or anything. I bought this like big Mountain Dew, just downed it, right? I don't know how many grams of sugar, but there's a lot. And so this whole time, I didn't know, like my body was finding some way to survive, despite me being diabetic, right? So I'm in jail. I'm not doing drugs. I get out. I drink this Mountain Dew. I go into a diabetic coma. So my buddy drives me back to Estes Park, and my body temperature drops like 85, right? So I'm dying. I'm defecating on myself. It's going down, right? And in Estes Park, it's so small that when he calls the ambulance, there's not much that they could do, right? So then they flew me in a helicopter to FOCO, right? So they fly me to Fort Collins, and that's where they triaged me. I was in a coma for like 7 days, and I came out, and that's where everybody was like, "Oh yeah, that's where you turned it around, right?" Like, yeah, I didn't suffer at all. Like I was sleeping. Everybody around me was like thinking I was going to die. I was taking a nap. So I still didn't get better. Right. And I came back to Orlando, Florida, ironically, full circle. I'm back in Florida. and I didn't have enough money for drugs. I started just drinking, man. And so at that point, it's like, there's no denial, right? Like that part of the, what could I say? I was no longer functioning. It was very clear, right, left, all around me. Everybody knew, including myself, right, that I was off the tracks, man. I was full blown, just suicidal, but I didn't have enough guts to like make it happen. So I was just like lazily trying to drink myself to death, right? And so it is, it was dark, brother. It's dark, and it got nasty, and then I started getting Baker acted here in Florida. So if you're a threat to yourself or others, and somebody calls, the cops will, politely haul you off to like a mental hospital. So they had done this. This probably happened, I don't know, well over 10 times. I want to say like between 12 and 15, something like that. But it gives you 72 hours. Right. And I was like, after like so many times in there, I was like, I gotta like come up with a plan. I gotta make this happen, because I was desperate. And so I eventually started piecing together some accountability, tools. And I doubled down on my efforts, and then, I started gaining some traction in recovery, man. But it was a nasty, long journey. Sometimes I skip over some of the parts, and they're in my book, right? So this book, right. I can't point very well.
Right there. I see it.
Like when I was in Orlando, like I was around my family, but my family, they're some of them are addicts. My mother is still actively in addiction and alcoholism. And she accused me of trying to cut her head off. So I did did a little jail time there. And these are some of these milestones that added up to the undeniable truth that I was completely out of control. And so enough of those circumstances really added up to the culmination of me wanting to and being ready for recovery, right? Because that's what it is. I don't believe that it's instantaneous ever, right? So it's this culmination of hideous moments that got me fed up enough to like, really dig my heels in and make a run for it. You know what I mean? Like, and I failed. so many times. And I think that maybe the silver lining is that no matter how many times somebody has really, just failed the fucking mission, like it's all right, like, because you just keep at it, like, to your point earlier, right? If you stay in it, like, eventually it will take form, it will take a hold of you, and you'll start gaining more days without using in between.
It's true. I mean, just those when we think we're at the bottom, it's really never the bottom. There's
Right.
always worse. There's always worse. So what was that underlying moment where you had to, hey, I've got to stop this? Where was that underlying, that definitive moment that says, I got to stop this. Get me out of here.
Well, I think, again, like the times that I was in these Baker acted situations, which for anybody that's not familiar, they'll hold you for 72 hours in a mental hospital. So you're not arrested. So there's no like charge, but you can't go anywhere. Like,
Oh,
you
so
can't,
yeah,
you're not, so you're detained, but you're not like in the system. And so, I regained just this like little tiny bit of clarity, and I started getting sick of it. Initially I was like, well, I'll just get out of here, just start it all over. I can't wait to just get that moment and kick this thing back up again. And then after, so many times, I was like begging him, like, hey, listen, if you let me out, I'm going to be back in 2 weeks. Like, please, like, help me find some resources. And then that didn't happen. So then after I'd been back so many times after that, I was like, I got to figure this out. And really what I hadn't applied before was accountability. And so then I went to a cousin of mine who I had burned. I had burned her already. I had already burned her and her husband. And but this time I came with a plan. I came with, a different approach. So to answer your question, it just, every time I made the decision, I made it a little bit wiser than the last time. And then I made it a little bit more prepared and a little bit more dedicated than the last time. So it was like I made the same damn decision. Who
just a
knows
more
how?
of a culmination going up and building up to it.
But every time I became a little bit more fed up with my circumstances, I became a little bit more dedicated to the outcome. Because at first it's just a flat out lie. And anybody that's given recovery a run knows, like, or anybody around that person knows, like, oh, sure, we've heard this before. Sure. Yeah. Okay. And you're telling yourself that, right? You're telling yourself that. You're like, okay, yeah, because you have failed, right? And so, man, to overcome that is one of the greatest challenges that anybody could ever come up against in their lives. And so, after you have failed, you've lost the credibility with yourself. And so then what has to happen is just like a flat out, desperate but truly dedicated attempt, right? Like the true decision. And it has to be so far deep inside of yourself. Like there's nobody else truly needs to hear it. They've already heard your weak words before, but inside yourself, it has to be the truth. And so it's this countless times of trying. And then each time I got a little bit wiser, specifically with these times in the hospital, because I could get like a couple of days where it wasn't an option for me to go find money for drugs or alcohol, right? Like I only could think about what I would do when I got out again. And so then finally, after so many times, I had a plan that was better than the last 10 or 12 or whatever. And so then when I did it again, I took a different approach. And I was more dedicated, and I was a little more wiser than the other times too, right? So
That's the whole thing, is we learn things, and especially in, when we try, and when we don't know how, unless you're in an actual program, unless you go to a recovery center, a rehab center, detox, all that, and you have to learn it, through their program. If you don't know what to do, it's a bunch of tries and fails. It's a bunch of, finding a new way to do it. And I know that that's the way I did it, and I have this big, huge support community, and that's what kept me accountable to myself and accountable to a bunch of other people, so I could do it, because I was in the point where, what's the point? For me, it was like, there's no reason for me to get sober. None.
Right.
None.
Right.
And I know a lot of people out there feel the same way. Why do I need to get sober? Why do I want to
Yeah.
get clean? My drug of choice was methamphetamine, and I did it IV use. Why do I want to get clean? Why? There's no
Right.
point. I did 20 years in prison in Colorado. Did 20 years off and on, altogether 20 years in prison. I've been an addict since I was probably about mid-teens, early teens. And so what's the point now? I lost everything I loved. Fucking, either do something to me. I found my higher power is what it was.
Right.
And we had a long talk, and it was, well, you're going to do this whether you like it or not, and that's exactly what I've done.
Yeah. I call it the fuck it's, man. Like if you don't have a good argument internally, your brain, an addict's brain, is so good. It's like mental gymnastics. Like my brain could convince me, not only is it the best idea for me to go in that liquor store, like I need to go to the liquor store. It's for the better good of everybody, right? Like that's how good my brain was at like making it work in my mind and being like, well, fuck it, like I'll just do it. And oddly enough, my uncle, he just passed, right, 3 weeks ago, and he was a much worse alcoholic than myself, and he had been clean for, I don't know, over a decade or something like that, but he had done such a number on everybody around him, including myself, right? Like he didn't have anybody to talk to. He was living a very tough life, right? And then out of nowhere, and it kind of filtered through the family, and I hear like, oh, he just started drinking again. And I was like, wow, this is going to be the end. That's the last chance. He says, fuck it, why not? And so his body, he's a little bit older, and I mean, he was dead in no time. And
Wow.
I'm happy about it, because his life was no existence to really. It was tough, man. And he had done such a number here. He was a believer, and he had asked for forgiveness for what he had done. Meanwhile, the people on earth, are still struggling with it. You know what I mean? And so like he picked up drinking. I don't know how long he lasted, but he eventually, after a decade of being clean, he was like, fuck it. And then, that was the nail in the coffin, literally. And so, but yeah, if you don't have enough or a good enough reason, and you say that, it's over, right? You think, oh, fuck it, it's just one, or whatever it may be, then yeah, you're in trouble. And so that's
So I know you said something that your mom said you tried to cut her head off. Did you really try to cut your mom's head off?
Yeah, it's a big question, right? And the truth of the matter is, I don't truly know. That's part of the real issue, is that like I saw some video from the police, like cams and all that. I was like calm as a cucumber. And my mom actively in addiction, and she has a track record. She's accused her own mother, my grandmother, of trying to kill her with a telephone, and then my stepfather, and then my real father. And so, I'm not trying to like get rid of her credibility, but the point is, like, she has accused several people trying to murder her. But the thing is, I couldn't defend myself. I can't tell you, Jay. I cannot tell you exactly what happened. I know it wasn't good. And I know we were both under the influence. We were both taking tons of pills and drinking, and hence why I don't remember anything. And at the end of the day, we got into some kind of a tussle. Maybe I said it. Who knows? I truly don't know. I can't defend myself. And so that, for me, that was also another circumstance where I'm like, my God, like when I read it on the paper, I was like, first of all, it was like all news to me. When I read it, I'm like, well, that's why I'm in here for so long. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like thinking to myself, like what happened? And I truly can't answer your question. And nobody can really, because it's just her and me.
Right.
And neither one of us were,
It's some things in addiction happen, and it might not, and it might have been her perception, and you're like, whatever else, your actions. But a lot of times that happens. I mean, in the case of my drug of choice, methamphetamine, that meth-induced psychosis, just like alcohol-induced psychosis, is real. I mean, we don't remember the things that we do, And if we do remember it, it's a totally different way than what happened.
For
Because
sure.
we've already convinced our minds that it happened this way.
Yeah.
And so we don't remember the straight facts of it. We remember what our
Yeah.
drug-addled mind says we remembered.
Yeah. And I was actually diagnosed with schizophrenia because um, the why can't I think of the word? I was having, conversations with people that weren't there, and
Oh, yeah.
that included the police, and it ended up an actual diagnosis for schizophrenia, which they put me on risperidone, which is it's a nasty drug, man.
Risperidone, it is.
It's
There's a lot of bad ones out there that are supposed to be the help, and they cause more harm than anything. So
it jacked me up, man. And I currently I'm on zero of those things, and I'm not mad at like the doctors, because I mean, what the hell? Like, as you're talking about the psychosis that comes along, they're trying to help a person who doesn't know the truth because they're so clouded and their judgment is off the charts, right? And so it's like, here's this person, and they're trying, if they are, wholeheartedly trying to help me, how can they? Because everything coming out of my mouth is a lie. And then and on top of it being a lie, it's also like misconstrued by my, lack of clarity. So it's like, wow, yeah, they diagnosed me with some heavy ones there. And so currently I'm actually, go figure, like once I start getting some sober days under my belt,
right.
that's the case,
So question is, how long have you been sober? Not that 24 hours, there's only 24 hours in a day, so the longest you can ever be sober is one day at a time, 24 hours. So, but how many days have you strung together?
So it's going to be 7 years in March. So what am I like?
Nice. That's enough. 7. That's plenty. 6 and some change. Let's just call it that. It's over 5. Who cares?
Right. Yeah.
After I don't know about you. Did you find your the first year when you came up to that year mark was full of anxiety and questions? It was, after the first 3 months, it starts to get okay-ish, but then you get close to that year and it's all of a sudden all this shit, it seems like just bombards you, like the shit storm just bombards you, and it's like, why am I doing this again? Why?
The year mark is peculiar. It's a peculiar, like, I noticed some changes in a positive fashion. I noticed that, like, professionals, doctors and things like that, employers, right? Like there's this outside opinion that kind of shifts at around a year. It just has a lot more power to it.
It does.
From the outside looking in. And to your point about 24 hours is really the only real metric that we can use as addicts and alcoholics, right? Like, it's only the last 24 hours and then it starts over, right? And so
Yeah.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I don't feel like anything got worse, but I do believe that in anybody's particular journey that there'll be times when, like the demons, right? However you want to perceive them, inside, outside, whatever it may be. I mean, that voice can get loud at different parts. And so depending on the person and how they perceive the time frame, say somebody's giving it a whack, right? They've tried, 10, 15, 20 times, and they just keep hitting this 3-week mark, right? It starts to become this timestamp in their mind, so there's a possibility that for you, like at around a year, something started messing with you internally when you started thinking about the year, right? And I just feel like there's a lot of variables. They're all unique to that person, right? And so whenever it can hit you, and what we're talking about here is like a pretty good run in recovery, right? Like, we're not talking about the trenches, like the first 72 hours and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And on that, I was going to ask this. I had this brilliant fleeting thought, I call them squirrels, because they don't stick around too long. And unless I voice them really quick, they're gone forever.
Yeah. Well, hurry up.
What's that?
Hurry up.
Yeah. It's like, let it out. It's like, it's gone. So think this might have been the question. How did you recover? How did you start? I know you said you started building up the blocks and building up the steps. How did you recover?
Yeah, I didn't do AA.
Neither
That
did I.
that wasn't my path. I think I got in there and it was just yeah, I didn't find enough positive momentum there. And that was, I didn't really give it like a massive shot either. You know what I mean? I only went like a handful of times. However, I added some accountability and then some family members. That really helped. And then I started reading scripture every day. And then I also started exercising every day. And we're talking very small. Like the initial efforts were outrageously modest. You know what I mean? There was no bragging about it. For instance, I was like, oh, I'm going to do jumping jacks. I'm going to do 3 minutes, right? 3 minutes, cumulative minutes in a day. The meaning, like I maybe 20 seconds, just 20 seconds at a time. And by the way, at the time I was about 285 pounds. I'm like 200 right now. So like 20 seconds, right? And I log it, right? Then maybe an hour or two later, I'd go and do like another 30 seconds or something like that, right? In a day, 24-hour period, 3 minutes total. And so, I just started doing that. And then in addition to the spiritual element of reading scripture, but it was just reading anything, every day. And so and then I started writing every day. And so in very small amounts. I mean, the goal here was so small, it had to be small so I could get it, so I could do it. Because at the time I wasn't capable of a damn thing. Right. So it was like I had to be modest with my efforts in order to make it happen. And then it's like a hockey stick though. If you start that small and boom, it just seems like everything happens all at one time. But yeah, it was a mixture of scripture and, some modest exercise, a little bit of sweat. And then, I started adding in journaling, like writing, just kind of moderating my thoughts. You know what I mean? Like just kind of paying attention to what's kind of in my old noggin, right?
So I know you call your story a comeback story instead of a success story. Wouldn't it be? Isn't it kind of both though? I know the comeback is better than the fall always.
Right.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you consider it a success story also?
You know what? I'll tell you this, Ben, and I hope I don't like alienate anybody here, but like I watched like Arnold Schwarzenegger's life, right? Like I watched the documentary on his life. That's a success story. To me, it wasn't all that bad. Like what, he got 3rd place in a bodybuilding competition
and Mr. Olympic.
Yeah, and then he had a kid with his like office cleaning lady or whatever. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like that guy's not shooting heroin into his penis. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like that dude is not like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like I had seen too many, documentaries of people that have really seen some nasty stuff, right? And so, and I'd known too many people and I had done too many things, right? Like so for me, and I think humans, they want to hear about the comeback story, right? So like, for instance, in the midst of all this, like my vocation, if you will, like when I was trying to get my life together and I was in these programs, like I remember when I had realized I was in toilet water, like I was working for $8 an hour here in Florida, and he was like a men's program, and I went to this place. They put like these rubber boots on me. I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, whatever you do, don't touch the water. Whatever you do, don't touch the water. And I'm like, all right. And they gave me a rake, and I could go into this massive silo of water. And they're like, all right, clean all this algae out of this thing. I look to my right, and this is after like 2 or 3 days, right? I've gotten the water on me by this point. Nothing happened. It's not acid. But what I realized is that I was in toilet water. There's condoms floating around. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, so I'm making $8
that's what they meant.
I'm like, this is somebody's toilet water. That's where I am. And that's what I thought to myself. I'm like, wow, God, you wanted to make sure that
you were really in the shit.
I was in the shit. And so like, when I looked at like Arnold's story, I'm like, this dude doesn't know about being in shit water, Nothing against him, because great story, right? But like, that's the difference between a comeback story and a success story. Like, there's just, success stories are awesome. They're inspirational, and they probably have an advantage over me as far as where they can get, I suppose. But like, the comeback stories when somebody's got nothing, man. You know what I mean? And
Has
I know what
been living life, hit rock bottom, below rock bottom, pulled rock bottom in on top of them, and then climbed their way back out.
Right. And I think that element as humans, like, that's really what hits home, I think, for us, right? And I know what I look like these days. I look like a freaking cop. I look like I understand, but it wasn't always like this. I mean, and even when I tell people, like, yeah, I was homeless like not too long ago. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting, man. So that's why I don't call it a success story, because I feel like, collectively, on a whole, when we look at certain things, like, oh man, that fucking guy should not be alive. That's kind of like a special breed, you and I, right? So
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy that we can go so far, dig ourselves in a hole so far. And first of all is to just make it out alive. That's number one. And the second is to do what you're doing, what I'm doing, what others are doing, is just bringing hope to everybody else. There's a big difference between just being, I'm sober, I'm helping, I'm trying to help the next person. If you're sober, if you're clean, great. 100% absolute fantastic. If you're helping the next person, more fantastic, and to be able to do that in whatever form or fashion that you can leads me into the next question. What was the inspiration behind the book, and what's it about?
Well, the book is my best effort to share like what worked for me, and so it's a culmination of stories, memoirs, like the one with my mother when I was in the diabetic coma, these different parts of my life where I was having, it's basically the collection of all of the moments that add up to rock bottom.
It's almost like an autobiography, biography.
Right. Well, it's a memoir. So it's stories, but each story has got tactics and ways that I started to shift my perspective, and then started to get out of it. Right. So, because there needs to be some actionable items for me, like anything that I read, anything that I'm like, okay, I want to be able to walk away and do something after I read it. Not when I get finished. I don't want to have to interpret it, but like, what do I do? And so that's big for me. And so I think it's my efforts in trying to help somebody if they don't know what to do. And here's some ways and some things to do that can help. Right. And so, and I'll say this though, I didn't lean too far into the spirituality element, even though it's very important for me, because I just found like, there wasn't a whole lot of books out there that weren't, like Christian focused and that kind of thing. And so, I kind of went with a little bit more of a specific, group, even though it's like, it's Man Up, Sober Up, right, is the name of the book. But like, I've had a lot of women read that book.
They can might as well put "Whoa, man" on there too.
Exactly, man. Like, so yeah, it's like, to your point, Jay, right? Like, when you reach a certain point, it's not important that you're at the top of the ladder. None of them truly are, right? But if you're a couple of steps on the ladder ahead of somebody, reach back and help them up.
That's right.
And so that's what it is.
That's awesome that you brought that up, because success for all of us are different. My success is, being able to have a good outlook on life right now. That's a win in my book. That's a success right there. And every day. It's funny that you mentioned that you're in Orlando, because I'm like 40 minutes east of you.
It's the East Orlando guy.
Yeah. I'm 40 minutes like up I-4. Right. You can just keep going I-4 west or east, and you run right into my town. right, literally run right into my apartment, in fact.
Careful, man. I'll show up. You gotta watch it.
Hey, you bring it, we're going out. I'll fucking, we'll go to someplace on the beach. But what encouragement or what wisdom, what would you tell somebody that's wanting to get into recovery? What's the next thing to do?
Yeah, yeah,
Or even somebody that's been in recovery and is struggling still.
yeah. And so I'm gonna say a phrase and I'll break it down. Um, it works for me because I use obscure words sometimes because they stick a little bit better in my brain. So perpetual incremental progress is unstoppable, right? To simplify that, perpetual is just forever. So you never stop. Incremental implies small progress, some kind of a positive move, and then it equals that you cannot be stopped. And so if you keep what you're doing, if you start small and do it long enough, it will naturally build. And like I had mentioned earlier, like kind of hockey sticks on you, right? It's like you're going along and you can't do shit, right? But by all means, you're not posting this kind of stuff because it's not anything to brag about. But you're reading a few pages every day. You're writing every day, right? You're going for a walk every day. And it's like people underestimate what they can do in 10 years and overestimate what they can do in 1 year, right? So the point of it is like, if you can just stick to being like what you said, Jay, just like being better, being yourself better in some kind of a way, and you stick to that long enough, like you cannot fail. You can't. And so, now the flip side of that coin is that, if you do certain things that are kind of pulling you apart, things can fall apart on you at an exponential rate. Right. So if you just keep your sights just slightly above the horizon, just a tiny bit, and you do it long enough, you cannot fail.
And I like to simple it, just keep doing the next right thing, you know. Yeah, but the same concept is just one foot in front of the other, doing something to better your existence, whether that reading a book, writing it something down, cleaning the dishes, taking a shower, going outside. You don't have to make your bed every morning, but do something.
Right.
My bed's never made. I'm not going to make my bed just to go mess it up later. Sorry, not going to happen.
Well, the point, and whatever your humble start, because with drinking, I mean, I one time it was 15 minutes. I was like, I'm not going to drink for 15 minutes, and I failed. Like, and I was at work, right? So like,
Wow.
it was like crazy. It was crazy. So like, wherever it is for you, it's not too small, right?
No.
Whatever it is, it's not too small. Just start with whatever the hell you could do. That's and I think we all know like what certain things are positive, right? And it could be waving, saying hi, sending a nice text, something like the difference between positive and negative. And so if you stack up enough positive, you're gonna start to outweigh the negative in time, right? Like that's the idea.
So, since being sober and in recovery, what have you been doing? What have you been doing with your life?
Yeah. Well, I've got a family, right? I've got a year and a half old kid. That's my most recent adventure, man.
Oh, year and
Yeah.
a half. That's a good year right there. They're almost to the terrible twos. They're starting to walk, and you can be the dad. It's like let's
Yeah.
go outside a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
in this iguanas falling out of trees weather, but still.
He's yes, it's the greatest adventure. I believe it deep in my soul, man. I believe it deep in my soul is that there's nothing like it. And so, having a family, I was committed to just riding this damn thing until the wheels fell off and try to leave a decent looking corpse. I mean, that was the plan. And then now that I have a family and I have a kid, and I'm like, wow, like everything is turned around on me, in a good way, right? So like I have this other reason and source of joy, right? And so, what I've been doing lately, man, is just trying to enjoy that, right? Be present for them. And that's important, man. And so now as far as like, projects, things like that, man, I'm thinking about putting together a second book. I have my podcast of my own. It's The Next Fix. And so, yeah, man, I'm out there spreading the message just like yourself, brother.
The Next Fix. That's a good one. I wish I would have thought of that one. Dang it. I'm kind of partial to rock and recovery. You got to be a rock in it.
You do, man.
It's got like 10, 15, 10 or 15 different meanings. It's like whatever they apply, it's all that was my intended purpose.
Exactly. You nailed it. Yep. Perfect.
So on a daily, what's your daily, what do you do for your recovery daily? I know because sometimes some of us don't have to do much, because we've got that will, we've got that power to not have to struggle as much as others. I'm sorry if you're struggling and you think it's easy. It's not. I've had my ups and downs. I'm sure Ryan has had his ups and downs in recovery, but once you get to a certain point, it's like normal life again.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think that with anything truly is, it's contingent on momentum. And so once you do get sober days as momentum, right, it does become a little bit easy. It's not so much of the fight. And I call it the trenches, right? Like when you're in the trenches, it's like, it's this white knuckling. I mean, you're just praying that you just don't leave the house and manage to get into whatever. And so you do start to build sobriety momentum in that aspect. But then there's other ways that you have to maintain that momentum. I do it through running, and I still read scripture pretty much every day. And so, I do those things and try to reflect on my own thoughts. And so honestly, it's kind of still the same thing. Now I can run a little bit further, right?
Right.
But I do the same things that I really started with because it's just what I have found was, for me, those key pieces. If I can maintain that every day, then I can maintain that momentum. And so, yeah, that's what I do. I mean, I kid you not, man. I just a little bit of scripture. Sometimes I dig a little bit deeper than other days, but what I've added to it as well is like I reach out to like 3 people possibly in the day. Some people that are in recovery, some people that I just haven't spoken to in a while. I mean, I send like a lot of I love yous, and in my mind, I think that I owe them because there was a lot of selfish years in there.
Yeah.
I didn't give a shit about anybody. And so they didn't hear I love you from me for a long time. And so I'll send those out, and I don't ever think about whether or not they're going to respond. I just send it out. Right. And so, yeah, man, I do a few things that just kind of keep me grounded.
I like to say, like, once we get in recovery, it doesn't get it doesn't get any easier. It just gets less hard. The weight's never heavy, never gets lighter. We just get the muscle that we can lift it easier.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. And it does. Recovery gets less hard the more you do it. And there's going to be a point in time you're not even going to realizing that you're doing it, and you're just living life. And we choose to stop existing and start living. That's what the choice is. We stop existing on this planet and we start living like we're on this planet, like we're part of it.
Yeah, man.
And it's really big. It's really big to me to help the next person not go through the shit that I went. That shows, hey, it's okay. It's never too late. Never too late. Doesn't matter how far you think you're gone. Doesn't matter how far that you believe in your own head that you're gone. Doesn't matter how far society's told you you're gone. You're never too far gone. Never.
It's the truth. Yeah, man.
What would you say? Last question. Maybe last question. I'm not sure. Last question. Let me put it out there. Yeah, last question. One thing, though, any takeaway? What's the one big thing that you want everybody to take away from this conversation we had today?
Well, I think it lends to what you're mentioning, about you're not too far gone, right? Because I had believed that for so long. I just felt like it was over. I mean, even till recently, right? Like there were certain things I had accepted as like facts and reality, and it just wasn't true. but I also lost the ability to foresee into the future far enough to see a different reality. Well, I'll give you some examples. Like, you know, when I had kind of fallen off the grid, right? Like I walked away from a house, you know, and after a few years of just not putting my name on anything and just kind of running from the law and everything else, like I just came to this realization that I would never have credit. I would never have, you know, I would never, you know, have a credit score of over 700. I just gave up on all that, right? Like I just thought it was just not in the cards. And then, you know, recently I've managed to build my credit back up. I'm like, holy shit, like that actually happened. I mean, just the ambulance rides alone added to up, you know, towards like $100,000 in debt, right? And so after enough years, that kind of like falls off. I mean, I'm not saying that's the most noble way to go about it,
but hey, it works. You know,
they
it
stopped
works.
asking for money. And so, in addition to that, like I thought I would never get my license, and I got my driver's license back like 3 months ago. Right?
Wow.
I gave up. I was like,
Wow.
I can't drive. And then I got my license back. I'm like, oh shit! Like I just wrote it off. Right? So whatever you're feeling is out of the, you know, possibility for you. If you think that you can't get sober, you can. If you think that you can't have a family, you can. If you think that you can't have, you know, a business, you can. If you think that you can't make, you know, 150 grand in a year, you can. Like all these things, they're again, you overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 10. And so if you could just stretch out the timeline, then everything becomes possible for you. And so, yeah, I would just encourage anybody to just like to open up your mind. I know it's hard to do. Like I could not, I would have people ask me like, hey, what's your 5-year plan? I'm like, dude, I can't think further than a month.
5 years.
Yeah,
I'm still planning breakfast tomorrow.
Yeah, like, like, whoa, man, like that's too much. Like there's no way. I couldn't even fathom. And then now, like, I mean, you know, I got a little kid. I have to be thinking of 10 years from now. And that's just how things have changed.
You know, and I like, you know, we're only restricted by the amount of effort we put into it. That's our only restrictions. That's the only thing holding us back is the amount of effort we put into it. I mean, I get bad news all the time. Trying to get a place kind of, you know, on that side of Florida, on the west coast of Florida. And they're like, yeah, we want background checking. I'm like, yeah, there that goes. Not happen there. You know, 20 years of freaking bad stuff. Go ahead, drag that shit back up. I don't care. You know, I'll let you do it. You know,
right.
Find another place.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And I would,
you know, sometimes that will immediately, like in the present moment, that'll be like, son of a bitch. You know, there's another one. Nope, not giving you a chance. Nope. You know, but then in the big grand life scheme, if it happens, it happens. You know, there's nothing I can do about it other than show that I'm a better person. You know,
right.
And that's all any of us can do is if we have a past, you don't have to let it affect you. It's gonna affect you. Let's be real. It's going to affect you, but you don't have to let it affect you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. You nailed it. And it's so hard in the moment. It's so hard. Right. Look at you pissed, and you're like, you're like, no,
like these motherfucking assholes.
Right. Yeah, it's an unfortunate, you know, part of, you know, being an asshole for a long enough time, right? Like there's some stuff on paper. And it's not that easy to just get it like marked off. But, you know, you can't let it affect you, especially in the pursuit of something that's a little larger than that, and that's your recovery and how you perceive your life, you know. So yeah, it may prevent you from getting a job. I mean, there's such a long time, man.
I mean, there's so much of a long shopping list of reasons why they're not going to hire me at this place or this place or this place. Okay, you know, okay. There's going to be that one person that's going to look, you know, I was there one time. Oh yeah, I remember that place. And it's like, you know what? You're not such a bad guy. You want to come over here and try to work for me? I'm like, okay, sure, absolutely.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then you just stack that up on the next time.
Yeah.
You know, and just keep on building, and enough time that, you know, people will start to value you because you become valuable, right? And then there you are.
Yeah. It's funny. It's just amazing. The past, 2 different paths, same places though. Come on. Let's be real. Colorado, Florida, that's close enough. Same counties in Colorado. I mean, you know, and then like 40 miles difference. That's just, I mean,
Yeah,
if
I
you don't
actually,
think things are intended to happen,
yeah,
things are intended to happen for reasons, you know?
I had to go turn myself back in Larimer in Larimer
Oof.
County. I had a warrant, and I was like, and it came up like years into it. I'm like, oh shit! Like I'm not wanting to call it, as I had to fly back, and it was actually not too bad of a process. I paid like $50, kind of went in,
Right.
went out, and they let me go. But yeah, I had to turn myself back in Larimer County.
So funny story there. So I was still facing. So earlier this year, I had to go virtual court because I came down here in April, moved in May. I had court there in June 16th, the day after my recovery anniversary. So June 15th is my recovery date of 2024. But the day after I of this year, I had court for old stuff that I wasn't denying that it happened. I was absolutely I'm going to trial on the process of their actions because there's questionable. Yes, did I have stuff? Absolutely, sure did. My bad. I'm a criminal. I had criminal like instruments, drug use instruments. I had those, but I go in front of the DA and the prosecutor, and this was June 16th. My mom just took me out to Stonewood Grill or something like that for my 1 year being clean and sober. So I'm June 16th. I'm like, Ma, I got court this day. I've got court at 3. So I go, it's okay. Let's go. So I'm standing outside this place, and literally I'm on the phone with these people waiting to go to court. My lawyer calls like, Jason. Yeah. I'm like, yep, I'm here. I'm waiting. Like, the DA is going to drop all charges. I'm like, no, they're not. Don't lie to me. I didn't believe it. I'm like, don't lie to me. We've gone a year, and you've been telling me that they want to take it to trial. I'm like, I'm ready for trial. I don't care. I know I'm guilty, but I'm just questioning their procedure. That's it.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, they want to drop charges. I'm like, no, no, no. Tell me this shit again. She told me like 3 times. Now I'm bawling, and I have to go in front of the judge, granted by my phone. So I'm going in front of the judge, and she's like, Mr. Bush, last one to be called. I'm like, great, man. Why does it take so long? Last one to be called. Before she ever says anything, my lawyer stands up. I think there's been something about the case, and the DA stands up. The DA has been, she goes, Mr. Bush, I don't know if you know me, but I've been prosecuting you for the last 14 years. Put you in the halfway house, sent you to prison, sent you to probation, did all these things. And this last year showed us what really is a recovery. We're going to dismiss all charges in the pursuit of justice. And here I am crying my eyes out now because it was so emotional that I'm literally, my face is wet. And I have to still go inside and eat dinner, and my mom's there. She's crying. And the judge gets to speak, and she's like, yeah, Mr. Bush, you've done amazing in your recovery. Just keep doing the good thing. And it was literally like, that's all she's like, oh yeah, the weather looks really nice down there where you're at in Florida. Whatever you're doing down there seems to be working. So keep doing it. And I'm like, yeah, it's really nice down here.
That's awesome, brother.
And she's laughing, and the DA's like, yeah, 14 years. I've been prosecuting you for the last 14 years, and we're going to drop cases because we've never seen somebody progress so much in so little time.
That's awesome.
I'm like, well, okay, thanks.
That's awesome. Well,
that was
it's a reward, and it shows, for everybody listening, like those types of things, those serendipitous, windfalls, like they're gonna come. They do come.
I mean, even thinking about it brought me to tears a little bit, just because it's such a big thing that shit never happens to me. They're like, Mr. Bush, yeah, let's send you to prison. Okay. That it wasn't a jailable offense, or it wasn't a prisonable offense either. It was just possession. Okay. Bad.
Right.
And I was okay with taking it to trial and losing. A misdemeanor, put me on probation, whatever, cool. But when they said case is dismissed, start your new life over there. You're good. Start a new life. You put in the work, start a new life. I'm like, shit, okay. Okay.
When was that?
June 16th this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fresh, brother.
Yeah, it's still fresh. Yeah. It's crazy. And I'm like, I didn't believe it. My mom didn't believe it. And here then we go back in and to eat these friggin' blue cheese fries or whatever, chips or whatever, and they're freaking tasted the best thing ever in the world, free, you know. And then to talk about your license, I remember you just say like 3 or 6 months ago, you got your license back. I got mine back too. And I'm like, I never thought I'd drive again. Well, I was going to drive, but never legally.
Right. That is the truth. Yeah.
I gave up the driving legally part. I'm like, I'll just look over my shoulder and do the speed limit all the time. And in Florida, if you're doing the speed limit, you're probably going to get pulled over.
That's funny, man.
It's crazy. It's just nuts. And final thought, anything?
Oh no, man. I just, if anybody's listening to us and you're hearing us laugh and we're talking about it, it seems a lot easier once you've stacked some sober days.
Yes.
And the truth is it is, right? So for anybody that's like in those trenches, man, you've got to fight like hell,
Yeah.
So, but it's 100% worth it, and your efforts are going to be, compounded, by the universe, God, whoever. You start to see the rewards, and it may happen quicker than you think. Oftentimes it doesn't as quickly happen as we think, but like it might, and so that's a better chance than you might imagine. So I'm just encouraging anybody to do it.
Yeah, it is. And if you're not there, you can always get there. You can always get there. Just take the next right step, just a little tiny one, saying, I need help. That's it. That's all you need to do. Tell me where you can get your book.
Oh, it's on Amazon. You can go to ryanpenley.org to ryanpenley.org. See my my podcast, and then the book is there as well.
And what's your podcast called?
The Next Fix.
All right. So everybody out there, check him out. Get his book. Check out his fucking podcast.
Yeah.
He's an awesome dude. I don't know him, but he's awesome because we're in the same state, just locked up in the same county together, and now living in the same state still.
That's right.
Hey, war stories, right?
Yeah.
They're there for a reason. It's scars tell wounds. Scars tell the story, and that's part of our scars.
That's right, brother.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for being a guest on here. I really enjoyed it. I know that you did a couple of nukes with Mr. Whiskey. I almost met Mr. Whiskey yesterday. He was coming up from Miami, and he had to call it off because he had some other shit, but almost met him. So I still don't know his first name. I'm going to get his real name.
That's right. He's holds his cards close, man.
Yeah, he does. And if you don't know Pete versus Anxiety, if you've not been on his podcast yet, or he's a good one to get onto. He's awesome. Pete's the one that got me started doing this. And Jay, you'd be great doing podcasts. I'm like, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah, he's right.
So thank you for that too. Like I said, I really appreciate your time, taking the time today. Yeah, I can't wait to hear what you're doing more. I will check into your podcast because that's what I
appreciate you, brother. All right, guys.
Then keep rocking your recovery.
All right, y'all.